there were a number of multiple points that have been in focus by the Prime Minister, starting off with a number of charges that were made by him against the Congress. He, in fact, brings you those points that are perhaps going to be the white paper revelations that are going to be made by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Saturday during the budget session. He's spoken about how the colonial Raj had been carried forward by the Congress government in the last 70 years. He's also particularly mentioned about how there has been dynastic politics that has plagued the country in the last 70 years. He particularly mentioned about how the PSUs had been the target and there was a wrong notion with a kind of negative narrative that was being built by the government of the day, and how there has been a complete transformation in terms of the profit-bearing capacities of PSUs, including the HAL, including BSNL, including MTNL. I'm going to start my conversation. I have with me Deshrata Nigam. Deshrata Nigam, before I actually start off with the number of attacks that have been made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, there is a more important aspect that Prime Minister has spoken about. He's spoken about the next 5 years on the condition that the BJP is going to come to power with full majority, and he's spoken about Modi 3.0. He's spoken about the next 5 years. He's charted the plan already. This is going to be the agenda of his government. And in this agenda, he started off with the youth. He started about doctors. He's talking about medical colleges. He's talking about the overall health of the nation, and particularly the benefits that the poor need, the sick need, the ones who are needy, who till now have not gotten these benefits because the lack of medical institutions, the lack of number of doctors, by the lack of the financial aid that has now been provided to these beneficiaries. So, in a situation that this is the roadmap that the Prime Minister has charted out for his country in terms of his governance model from 2024 up until 2029, how do you see the India growth story, the Vikasit Bharat at 47 plan that is going to be helped in pushing forward this 5-year agenda?
Megha, in fact, the Prime Minister was at his best. A statesman, a Prime Minister par excellence, a human being, and an excellent leader. We all saw all this combined today. And obviously, since he is in competitive politics, the attack on the Congress and the opposition was very minute, factual, and also to the point. Yes, during the last part of his speech, he was very clear as to where India will be in 2047, fully developed, and yet we are on the way to become that. And by probably 3-4 years, we'll be the third largest economy in the world. Today, we are fifth. And recently we had taken over also Hong Kong in the stock market also. And the story and the main mantra that Prime Minister has focused on, the last person is standing on queue, the marginalized. He talked about Garib, Yuva, Nari, backward people, poor people. So these were the people who are being focused upon. And he also talked about 25 crore people coming out of poverty, the neo-middle class that he talked about, and the future that he has laid down. And he's so hopeful about the future. We as Indians, we are also very hopeful. He's created that hope among the Indians that we have a very bright future when compared to the opposition, where they are always at Nirashavadi, the ones who are doomsday politicians, doomsday economists, sitting abroad, guiding the dynasty in India. And therefore, he's very, very clear. His concepts are so clear.
Right.
His vision and visualization is so clear. Mm-hmm. And especially at the end, the step by step, one after the other, the vision that came out for the next years to bring India into a developed country and make India and the Indians a very happy lot. That is what I could see
Absolutely.
from him and his commitment to the nation.
Yeah.
That is
like you said, those specifics that have been mentioned, and there have been, in fact, I was making a note of those, and there are close to 50 to 60 of these points that have been made by Prime Minister specifically. And Himanshu, but amongst these important points, I would like to particularly highlight, like I said, the medicine department. You talk about the doctors, medical colleges, treatment for the poor. He's spoken about Jal Se Nal, so provision of water till the last mile in our country. He's spoken about Awas Yojana, a house for every single individual in our country. He's spoken about solar power. He's spoken about pipe gas connection network that needs to be built. He's spoken about Yuva Shakti. He's spoken about how the startups and the unicorns will be the largest in the world, that will be residing in India, that will be inceptioned in India. He's spoken about research funding. Now, there was a lakh crore rupees that has already been allocated in the budget, in the interim budget that was announced by Nirmala Sitharaman. He's spoken about how there will be world-class educational institutions that are going to be set up in our country. Bullet train, Vande Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat. He's spoken about oil that gets imported into India, and that eats up a large percentage of our budget. And that is going to be reduced, thereby doing a self-reliant India, talking about renewable energy. He's spoken about hydrogen mission. Do you think, I think it's a comprehensive plan for 2047. It is a comprehensive plan for the next 25 years. The next 5 years, if the BJP comes to power, is going to allow for the wheels to be in motion. Because, truth be told, this is a long-term gestation period plan that has been pictured by the Prime Minister.
Yes, it is a long-term plan. And it started, I think, by 2001, when he became the Chief Minister. He himself referred it today in his speech, that when I became a CM of Gujarat, in Adivasi belt, which starts from Umargam to Ambaji, there was not a single science school there for the tribal brotherlands. And in 21st century beginning, to say this by a Chief Minister, who was a Chief Minister at that time, requires guts. He accepted the fact that there were no schools and no science schools. So expecting, people from the weaker sections to go into science stream, become doctors, engineers and inventors was a near improbability. From there we come here today, where we are dreaming of becoming or making biggest unicorn by the Bhartiyas. It's a long way. And people are noticing it. He himself said, people do not understand at times when we say 20% ethanol mixed. See where it comes to. Your fuel becomes a little cheaper. And that additional money that is saved goes to the farmer. See, things what he told was basically in totality. Actually, I would say, Megha, you should look at the Prime Minister's today's speech and club it along with 5th of February's Lok Sabha speech. It's basically a continuation of the dream of this government, what they want to achieve. And he was narrating fact by fact, one by one, what they did, how they did, and what they plan to do. It's a comprehensive roadmap that has been prepared and presented in front of the people of Bharat, for India to transform into Bharat and become number one, a developed nation in 2047. So he was very, very clear on certain things. And one more thing, he was talking about this, that specifically, Rashtrapati, when she spoke, she was telling there are no more jatis, there are just 4 jatis. Youth, women, backward, and our Annadata, farmers. And that is what is the narrative that is being sold. He was talking today of so much of narrative. People have, propagated false narrative. Because of that, we suffered from this. Because of that, we suffered from this. That is what he meant to say. When a Prime Minister of a nation says, I do not believe in reservation, and still you talk of reservation, that is selling a wrong narrative. He was telling this in simple words for people to understand that. He was telling that there was a narrative which was spread by people that PSUs, public sector undertakings, are incurring big losses. LIC will go bust and this and that and all. But you see the figures. LIC recorded the maximum profit.
Right.
So this way, if you say, he was very, very categorical. Instead of coming down on one party, yes, he did. See, as a political party and prime minister of a party that rules, it is his duty to pinpoint the mistakes committed, what they think as are mistakes committed by the previous regimes. And he very well did so. In that, he may have taken a few giants. He may have taken examples which people may not like it. But that's be it. See, if you look at it from a neutral's viewpoint, you will understand that here is a government which is giving you a roadmap, which is giving you an exact plan, what they plan to do with it. What is their blueprint for coming 5 years, coming 25 years, and coming 1,000 years? This is what was reflected. Because if you see the two speeches in totality, the thing which comes out and stands out maximum is emphasis on Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat. They are doing everything in their mind, everything within their own rule, to see to that Bharat becomes an Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Deshada Nigam, talking about the big charges that have been made by the Prime Minister and targeting particularly the Congress, because, when the announcement came of Nirmala Sitharaman tabling the white paper, this was obvious, a lot of speculations on which are the issues that are going to be picked by the government of India in terms of the comparison it will make for the last 10 years of the NDA rule versus the 70 years of the UPA ruling the country. And particular focus had been made by the Prime Minister was of the colonial era policies and rules. In fact, one specific mention, it's an ordinary thing. The fact that the budget used to be tabled at 5 p.m. in the parliament as per the British rules and policies. The question he asked is, why could this particular policy, this particular behavior that had been followed by Indians when the British rule came into being could not be changed? So, these are specifics that he has mentioned. He has given these small examples to then, justify and explain what is the point that he is making. Why is it that he is targeting and questioning the Congress, the UPA era that ended up the conjecture that he has put, and the question being said, has he put the final point in place that under the UPA there was Indian economy that was stagnant? Because that's the allegation made by the BJP, made by the government of India. The white paper is going to come out very soon in the numbered of days on Saturday. So a strong point that has been made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to put across what he is trying to convey to the public.
Megha, in fact, he so brutally unmasked the Congress today that they had no place to hide. And backed by data, whether it is about BSNL, whether it is about PSUs making profits, and what was the actual situation of PSUs under the previous government. The banking system had almost collapsed earlier, how the banking system has been made robust, and the education system that he talked about, how the enrollment has increased and dropout has gone down. He talked about very important cooperative, competitive federalism, that you have to compete with each other. And then obviously the kind of, stepmotherly treatment the states were given earlier, and the kind of, dismissing governments in the past by the Indira Gandhi or the Nehru regime. So those were the things that he clearly unmasked, and people have a right to know. And that white paper is absolutely important to bust the fake narratives which have been, given to us on a platter. And that is to be seen as and when the white paper comes out. And I'm eagerly waiting for that. And to come out of the colonial mindset, the example that he cited about, presenting budget at 5 p.m. when the Britishers would start functioning in their own country, and then you present a budget out here in the evening. So this present government has done away with all that. And he spoke from the ramparts of the Red Fort also during one of his speeches on the Independence Day, where he, in the Panch Pran that had taken 5, promises, and that was taken. They clearly pointed out that we have to come out of this slave mentality, and that is where so many things are coming out. Pride in our nation, pride in our civilization, pride in our customs, pride in our Sanskriti. These are the things he's pointed out, and he has actually inculcated that pride into Indians, and we all feel so proud about it.
Another point, Shata Nigam, talking about the fragile 5 economies of the world, and India used to be one of them during the UPA era. He is now compared to India becoming the 5th largest economy of the world. So a lot has changed in terms of how India used to be looked upon by the world versus the global prowess it has been able to achieve in the last years. And that comparison puts forth a strong point for the government of India for also reaching out to the voters, telling that, this is what we have done, these are our achievements, and when they compare it to the UPA era rule in the country, it only strengthens their resolve, it only strengthens their part of the story, which then are voters likely to buy into this?
Yes, Megha. In fact, if you look at the facts, figures and data and compare the previous regimes and the regime from 2014 onwards of the NDA and the BJP, which clearly says there are huge and marked differences from fragile 5 to top 5, where we were, India was made fun of that India's rate of economy growth is Hindu rate of economy, 2 to 3%. Now from there, especially among the challenges that we had to face, COVID, the recession that in late 2016, 17, 18, the world was going through, but India navigated. And especially, he so clearly unmasked the Congress by quoting Manmohan Singh. The fake narrative is today the Congress is building up is totally falls flat in view of the statements by the Manmohan Singh. Whether it was 2G scam, where Manmohan Singh clearly admitted in a press conference, made a statement to the press that yes, the government has gone wrong. The Supreme Court cancelled licenses, the huge amount of corruption. They promised GST, but they were opposing GST. The GDP is rising. The current account deficit has gone down. The inflation is at the rate of about 4%. So it was so specific. And the problem with the Congress is they're not, changing with times. They're still stuck up with their dynastic entitlement. They have no other leader to lead them. So that moribund kind of a party where everything moves at a snail's pace. The person who should be in Delhi at this point of time is doing some kind of a yatra somewhere, someplace. So far removed from reality. The Prime Minister has given a report card to the people of this country, and it is backed by statistics, hard facts on the ground. The total emphasis is on delivery and implementation. Earlier, the schemes and projects were launched, but they were never completed or they were never even started. Today, there are timelines. Look at the Prime Minister. Either he's launching a project or inaugurating a project which has been completed. Every day he does that, whether it's airports, railway station, or any project you take it. That's his speed, and he never tires. And that is what the people of this country are watching and seeing. And on the other hand, you have idle people walking around without any alternative plan or policies. They don't even try to critically analyze the policies of the government so that they can give some kind of a suggestion for improvement. Although government has its own mechanism of feedback mechanism for improvement, but that role that the opposition is supposed to play, including the Congress, that they have to be constructive. But they are doomsday politicians. The people don't like hopeless people.
Okay.
They like leadership which is full of hope and positivity. And that is what our Prime Minister symbolizes.
Himanshu, one more point, and this has been the topical subject for the opposition, and particularly the Congress, when we talk about the caste census. And there was an important targeted attack by the Prime Minister against the Congress, and Rajiv Gandhi, when he was the Prime Minister, rejecting the Mandal Commission report. He's targeted the Congress, saying that if it was not for Ambedkar, the plight of the OBCs and those who have been left behind in our country, the tribals, would have been even worse. under the UPA.
Then you see, he even said about Nehru. He took out, in his speech, he said Pandit Nehru wrote letters to the chief ministers of the states at that time that I am not in favor of reservations because they don't come out with a quality people. That is what he said. And it was just plain, in simple Hindi, he very, very clearly said that. The reason for that is, there were narratives that were going on during that time. As a journalist, when you look at it, now you understand. When you see the real happenings on the ground, the real groundwork being put out on the ground by some party, and you see the narratives of some other party some years back, you understand what is happening. I'll give you a simple example that in our tribal districts of Dam, there were absolutely no developments.
Yeah,
And
okay.
he very clearly said, he very clearly said this. Okay, there were not a science school. Forget science schools. They had to walk for miles, despite living in a place where there used to be very, very heavy rainfall. There were no facilities. But when you see, after 2014, when they start working on the ground and developing these things, when you have 4 crore pakka houses, when you have 11 crore people getting toilets, now that gives a self-pride, that self-belief in the people and the confidence in the people about a particular political party that is done for them establishes. And this is what has happened. So
Okay.
his narrative was very, very clear. He was breaking the narrative, setting up a new narrative.
Okay, all right. You're talking about new narratives. There has been an often repeated attack by the BJP against Rahul Gandhi, and Deshad Nigam, Prime Minister, did not stop at that, and he particularly mentioned about how the Congress has now installed a Yuvraj who is a non-starter. He does not lift, neither does he launch. Now, this is an individual personal attack at Rahul Gandhi, and this has been the pattern that has been followed by the BJP and the Prime Minister included when attacking the Congress.
Well, Megha, in fact, it is the Congress leaders like Kharge and Rahul Gandhi who continuously make personal attacks, nothing to do with the policy or the governance of the government. So, and here he is clearly talking about Rahul Gandhi, that why the principal national opposition party is hell-bent on a dynasty. Because the Congress has to answer to the nation. They are responsible for a constructive opposition in the nation, and they have equal stakes in the development of this country and making this country a developed nation by 2047. However, they do not move out of the dynasty and the dynastic entitlement that they have out there. So I think we have to question that. The ordinary people cannot even aspire out there to become the president. So only person who can be president, acting presidents will be from the Gandhi family. This time they've got a puppet president, Mr. Kharge, and when Mr. Gehlot refused. So the attack is justified. He's unmasking them. By unmasking the dynasty, he's clearly pointed out the negatives and the loopholes which the Congress party has, for which the nation has to pay the price. The kind of stand that they take against the army, pro-China, having MOU with the Chinese party, meeting the Chinese ambassador when the Chinese army tries to infiltrate India. So these are the things that has to be, because if there was a proper leadership in Congress, these things would not have mattered. So
Okay.
what we require today is a very clear leadership in Congress so that can have a constructive opposition in the nation. But that is non-existent. It is for that purpose the attack is there. I don't think it is personal, in my opinion. It may sound personal, but it is not personal. It is keeping the nation first, nation supreme. And if the Congress policies are harming the nation, they have to be exposed, whether it is dynastic family or otherwise.
Okay, all right. Quickly coming to you, Himanshu, and talking about attacking the Congress and tearing the Congress down, he particularly talked about he really hoped and wished and prayed that Congress ends up at least securing 40 seats in the Lok Sabha election.
The indication is that was a pun, basically, a satire. See, you must understand that he's a political leader, and he's a political leader of big repute. That is the true Narendra Modi, Narendra Bhai, as we know him. That is true himself. Because, he very clearly said that I start nothing. But when someone starts at me, I don't stop. This is the way he works. This is the way he works. He's a political leader after all. He's a very astute politician. He knows what to speak, when to speak, where to speak, and how to speak. That is what makes him what he is today. And that's why, I don't foresee anything wrong in that, because political jibes in this season of elections are going to take place. And this was basically a platform provided to him by the opposition, I would say, that they wanted, President, on President's speech in the House, when you create ruckus, when you create halabulas, then naturally Prime Minister will come out and do that. And this is what has happened. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning salvo. This is just the first salvo of 2024. Now the white paper will come, and then something else will come, and this will continue. He was very, very clear. I would like to point out one more thing, here, that union of state, that is Bharat, that is India. Now he came down very heavily on such talking,
Yeah.
He said, parts of the body can.
Deshadha Nigam, important. He kept saying that the colonial Raj was perpetuated by the Congress, whether it be Nehru or Gandhi or the UPA that was run under the reigns of Sonia Gandhi with the puppet Prime Minister who was Manmohan Singh. We talk about Rajiv Gandhi. So the question he asked the Congress is, why did they wait for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP to come to power to remove all the colonial era baggage that India continued to carry, whether it is about Kartavya Path, whether it is about British era symbols, whether it is about the names of these districts and states that give us a reminder of the British era colonialism.
Yes. In fact, if I look at the entire speech of the Prime Minister, and then I recall an article published in Guardian in London. That was when the results of the Lok Sabha were declared in 2014. They said India has today gained independence. That is what they were trying to say, that now the colonial mindset is gone. And that is where if you look at the IPC, CRPC of the old was continued. Many laws which were redundant, more than about 1700 laws have been done away with this present government. Budget at 5 p.m. Rajpath to have become Kartavya Path. The statue of Subhash Chandra Bose at the canopy at India Gate, and so many things, about the army, the pride that we have in our army. They used to put down our armies. They used to call Chief of Army Staff as Gunda. So these are the things which are very, very, the people are watching. Earlier it was brushed under the carpet. Now no more. People are very aware. People are digging about Congress, what the Congress policies have been in the past, and how they have tried to keep poor as poor, and always trying to, year after year, elections after elections, it is Garibi Hatao. They could never remove Garibi. Indira Gandhi continued the same slogan which was given in 1951 election, 52 election. The continuous elections were, even in today's Congress's manifesto, they still have the same slogan. No shame on that for them. So we have to move out. We have to be very clear. Our focus is very clear. We have a standing. Our passport has more value. India is a standing, and hopefully India will become a part of the Security Council, permanent 5 in near future. We are moving in the right direction, and this is the time. And some economists have said, and I was reading about them, that this is going to be not India's decades, but century.
Okay. Himanshu, I'm going to again come back to the focus of the OBCs, the Dalits, the tribals, because, that is the agenda that the Congress is wanting to fight the election against the BJP. Like I mentioned, the caste census that has been brought out by the Congress. Rahul Gandhi has also been speaking vehemently about it and questioning BJP as to why it has not done enough for the tribals, for the OBCs, and obviously the reservations that the Congress had over the BJP opposing the caste census, because it comes from the opposition, it comes from the Congress, it comes from India Alliance, and I said, and there was a large, a considerable amount of time that was devoted by the Prime Minister to speak about the achievements, the actions, the policies that have been brought out by the BJP for the tribals, for the ones who have been left behind, for the underprivileged, for the OBCs. He starts off with he himself being an OBC. He starts about how the tribals have been included in a new policy that he at this point of time has launched just a few months ago. He's spoken about Baba Sahib Ambedkar. He's spoken about how Baba Sahib Ambedkar was given Bharat Ratna posthumously under the BJP era, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's spoken about President Murmu's candidature. He's spoken about a number of Eklavya schools that have now been opened. He has spoken about how the education of these backward classes will help them install themselves as the breadwinners and to bring about self-respect and a status for their families, which up until now was missing. So again, I like to focus, this is in fact an attempt, and unabashedly so, that there is a pitching against the Congress in the upcoming Lok Sabha election, and BJP and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are no holds barred when it comes to the OBC matter.
Yes. See, on one side you have Rahul Gandhi going and telling people that the moment we come, our Indian government comes into power, we will hold caste census. That's their way of talking. Prime Minister says from the floor of the House, this is what we have done and this is what we plan to do. See, this is something, actually speaking, Megha, if you see it on a larger scale, you will understand one thing, that, total of 8% of the total electorate constitute this tribal belt of the country. Now, this 8% vote share has slowly and steadily, if you see the election results of last 3 Lok Sabha elections, have started shifting from one side to the other. Now, this is where both of them are fighting. And everyone knows that if you want to make Bharat or India a truly developed nation, you need to take this last section of the society to the level of everybody else. And for that, just verbatim rhetorics will not do. You will have to do a lot of work. And that's why Prime Minister was very clear, crystal clear. He was telling you by the symbols what they did. He was telling you by the actions what they did. Because, what happens is, on one side, you have a narrative where they say, this government is not that for poor people. That's a narrative being said by the opposition. On the other side, you have this government on ground working, and you see the results in recent 3 Lok Sabha, recent 3 Vidhan Sabha elections in MP and in Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh, no one expected BJP to do well and win. But they won. They won on what? They predominantly.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
They predominantly won on the tribal vote.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a fight of narrative which is going on, and both of them want to get the maximum share of this tribal vote. If BJP on one side says they want to increase 10% of their vote share, Congress says they want to stay relevant, they both will have to capture the majority of that 8% vote share of tribals.
Yeah. It's also, Himanshu, interesting to note, the turf wars that are at this point of time being played out in Punjab and in Delhi, which is the BJP versus the Aam Aadmi Party. The agencies, whether it is the police force or the enforcement directorate, they have been unrelenting against Aam Aadmi Party, against Arvind Kejriwal. And in contrast to what we see in the parliament today. And I will again mention that this is a precursor to the white paper that the government of India has decided to bring out. So their complete focus within the parliament in the budget session is going to be the white paper and the comparison that they would want to make and show the public of the 10 years of BJP versus the 70 years of the UPA. But when we talk about the larger scheme of things, when the Lok Sabha elections take place, there are a number of political parties, and foremost is the Aam Aadmi Party, and Congress perhaps comes second in the competition that BJP has, is what my perception is in terms of the news that is being played out.
No, in terms of, that's what you said. Yeah, the last thing what you said is more relevant. In terms of the news that is being played out. See, AAP's vote share today, even today, is not more than 6% of the total national vote share. whereas Congress still holds 17 to 18% vote share with BJP at 37-38%. So you have to remember that, and what is being played out today in Delhi and Punjab is one-upmanship. It's a political game. Because if you go, that agencies, if you look at from the perspective of an agency, agencies, people are very, very clear.
Yeah.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.